Hello, Spiritual Center Spokane. This is Reverend Bonnie, and I'm so glad to be with you today. It's another Tuesday, and we are above ground, so it's good. It's good and it's very good. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I invite us to begin today with a short prayer. If you would kindly place your hands on your heart and feel your feet onto the ground, and take a nice big inhalation with me and an exhalation. And again. One more. Maybe move your shoulders for a minute in both directions. Ah. And so I feel my energy field in my body temple. I can feel the divine presence within, the presence that breathes me and lives me and experiences itself in, through, and as me. And I give thanks for this divine presence, which I can lean into and which I can draw from. I give thanks that I am vitalized by the spirit of the only thing that is, that I call God, although I could call it source. I could call it divine presence. I could call it substance. I could call it the beginning. There's so many names to call the only thing that is, and so I begin this day in that. Grateful that we have the time together in order to remember who we are. Grateful that we come together as a community in order to have a brief lesson and then meditate together, do a spiritual practice together, hang out together in consciousness. I just give thanks that the presence of God, that ever giving presence, is active right here and right now. And so, from this awareness, I bless myself. I bless each one of us that is on YouTube right here and right now in this very moment. Whether it is live or whether it is a replay, there is no time and space in God. There's only the now moment. So, right here and right now, I am grounded in the divine presence, and you are grounded in the divine presence. There is one presence here. And so, tonight, as we receive spiritual food, and guidance and laughter and insight. It all comes from the one thing that is. And so in advance, I give thanks for all of it. And so it is. Amen. All right. Blessings and welcome. I'm so glad to be with you again tonight. So I have my prayer beads on that I got at Agape. So I have a little bit of the mothership with me. And then I have my individual prayer container that I started in 2026 with the beautiful light lit above it. So we have got ourselves here an altar, and you're invited to create sacred space when we come together in this talk and practice. This week was Martin Luther King's Day, and I wanted to talk about it. I was privileged to be interviewed for one of the very last interviews after 19 years on the air with Mance and Mitchell. Their show out of Seattle will come to an end at the end of this month. They are officially retiring. And I have been friends with them for longer than 19 years and have been privileged to be on their show for the last 15 years. And we spent the majority of time talking about my insights around Dr. King. And then I wrote about it in my blog. So for any repetition, I apologize in advance. And I also know that repetition is good for us and for our soul, and that I will be speaking it differently than it could be read. And so I just trust each one of us to go deeper into the teaching and into the talk. So I bought this book the year it came out, and I will be able to tell you which year that is here in just a sec. 1998. I bought this book in 1998, which would be 28 years ago, and it's called A Knock at Midnight. And I have read it 2 or 3 times every year since I purchased it, and I have got marks and lines and exclamation marks and notes all throughout this beautiful work. And I have used this book and this reference point in many of the talks that I have given at different spiritual centers. My favorite sermon, this is a Book of Kings sermons, and my favorite sermon he gave is called Loving Your Enemies. And what I'm going to talk about today is the 3 different phases in which I have experienced and discovered a profound impact from Dr. King's work. And what is lovely about having been alive as long as I've been alive and having been a spiritual practitioner this long is I can see an arc. I can see an arc in my development that's happened. And it's interesting to lay an arc up against a cultural or a cultural context, a spiritual context, an individual person's context. And so tonight, these 3 separate chunks of unfoldment from my soul are distinctly different based upon the work from this man. So the very first 10 years or so of being with King's work, I loved his sermons. And he was a minister. I'm a minister. I love the way that he spoke. And I just feel like and felt like he is able to articulate love in a way that very few other people have been able to articulate it. And he articulates it not as a feeling that we have, but as a force field that exists. And he was very powerful in coalescing that force field. But to be able to coalesce it, you have to be able to identify it. So in his sermon, Loving Your Enemies, and I'll tell you when he gave this sermon to give us another cultural context. He gave it at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama, November 17, 1957. And so this is the part that I quote a lot. And it is a story about him and his brother. Okay. All right. So this begins by saying, somewhere someone must have a little sense, and that's the strong person. The strong person is the person who can cut off the chain of hate, the chain of evil. And that is the tragedy of hate, that it doesn't cut it off. It only intensifies the existence of hate and evil in the universe. Somebody must have religion enough and morality enough to cut it off and inject it with every structure of the universe, that strong and powerful element of love. So here's the story. I think I mentioned before that some time ago, my brother and I were driving one evening to Chattanooga, Tennessee from Atlanta. He was driving the car, and for some reason, the drivers were very discourteous that night. They didn't dim their lights. Hardly any driver that passed by dimmed his lights. And I remember very vividly my brother, AD, looked over and in a tone of anger said to me, "I know what I'm going to do. The next car that comes along here and refuses to dim the lights, I'm going to fail to dim mine, and I'm going to pour them on with all their power." And I looked at him right quick and I said, "Oh no, don't do that. There'd be too much light on this highway and it will end up in mutual destruction for all. Somebody has got to have some sense on this highway." What a great metaphor. Somebody must have sense enough to dim the lights, and that is the trouble, isn't it? That as all of the civilizations in the world move up the highway of history, so many civilizations have looked at other civilizations that refuse to dim the light, and they decided to refuse to dim theirs. And he goes on to say that somebody must have enough sense and enough morality to cut off the chain of hate and the chain of evil in the universe, and you can only do that by love. There's another reason, he says, why you should love your enemies, and that's because hate distorts the personality of the hater. And you and I both know that's true, especially as metaphysicians. We know that we have to have the hate within to have the hate come out. And believe it or not, most people don't know that. Believe it or not, we are awake enough to have that awareness that if I'm hating, guess where the hate lives? Hello. So we usually think of what hate does for the individual hated or the individuals hated or the groups hated, but it is even more tragic. It is even more ruinous and injurious to the individual who hates. You just begin hating someone and you will do irrational things. You can't see straight. You can't walk straight when you hate. You can't stand upright. Your vision is distorted. There's nothing more tragic than to see in an individual whose heart is filled with hate. And then he goes on to say that individual will eventually become pathological. So he gives this beautiful, beautiful talk, just building up all of the reasons why it is that we are to love. And he does say, I would rather die. I love you and I would rather die than hate you, which is really quite profound. All right. So the first part of my connection was the teachings of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I noticed this past weekend that when the football games were on, the back of their helmet said, choose love. And I went online and I looked up why the back of their helmet said choose love. And that is because choose love is a saying of Dr. King's. So it was an homage, a shout out to Dr. King. And Reverend Michael Beckwith always says that choice comes about through awareness, that it is a byproduct of awareness. You cannot be at choice if you're not aware. If you're not aware, you're reactive. So choice is a byproduct of awareness. And so I love the statement, choose love, because it's saying be awake and aware enough to know that you are responsible for yourself. You are able to show up for yourself and choose love. I think that's beautiful. Then I did a deep, deep dive into the life of Dr. King, and I got all kinds of biographies, autobiographies, saw a bunch of videos. I did a deep dive into his life because I was very curious about him. And I learned through my deep dive that it is recorded, it is said that he had a lot of affairs with women, a lot of affairs on his wife, that he cheated a lot. He was a philanderer. And I was heartbroken. I was so heartbroken because I'd put him on a pedestal and I had thought that someone who taught and knew the power of love and the force of love would be monogamous. And that isn't true. I made that up. So my journey with Dr. King was an internal struggle of my own ability to accept the errors, um, the choices that would be different than my value system or my judgments, to be with those, to sit with those, to do forgiveness work, to hang out with them, to feel into it, to finally come to a place where I was able to accept his greatness despite his personal choices, and that I was able to accept my own judgments of my own self. That process of uh, wrestling with his life choices was one that opened me up to more self-love and more self-forgiveness and more charity with myself and more compassion to myself and to him and to others. And who would have thought that I wouldn't have thought, is what I should say, that it would be my own internal struggle with somebody else's life choices that would be what ended up opening my heart and allowing for more acceptance of self and others. So when I think of Dr. King, I think of this great love work, but I also think personally of how I did a dance with his life choices and my own reconciliation with the brilliance of his life and his personal choices that then reflected back to me. So that was kind of the second phase of Dr. King, if you will. Then the third one is what we're experiencing today with all of the nonviolent protests that are happening right now at this very moment in the United States. I am keenly aware that that was seeded by Dr. King, that Dr. King went over and studied Gandhian principles to learn how to embody peace and bring peace forward through marches. And so back during the civil rights marches in the late 50s, early 60s, you will see horrible cruelty to humanity, which is a parallel to today. But you will see the person being perpetrated on by those of authority, not responding like to like. So going back to his sermon of loving your enemies, not turning the lights up, not inflaming, but dimming the lights so that there's enough space and grace for everyone. And so he learned the Gandhian principles. He came back from India. He taught it to the civil rights protesters. He had classes, taught them how to do it. And those same principles are in action today. And so the third wave of appreciation for who this man was on the planet for me is his ability as a leader to articulate love, to know the power and the force of love, which is more than a feeling, it is a way of being. And for him to know that, be able to coalesce it as a leader and be able to direct it in a way that changes the course of history. And so, in that very same sermon that he gave, he said, when he's talking about choosing love, he's talking about coming up against oppressors, and he says, history unfortunately leaves some people oppressed and some people oppressors. And what you and I know is that in duality, which is the mind, in the mind there's duality, there is the two. In the heart there's only one. In the heart is oneness. In the mind, there's duality. In the heart, there's oneness. So as he's teaching love, he's teaching non-duality, which is beautiful. So here he's talking about the oppressed and the oppressor, which can only exist in the mind. History, unfortunately, leaves some people oppressed and some people oppressors. And there are three ways that individuals who are oppressed can deal with their oppression. One of them is to rise up against their oppressor with physical violence and corroding hate. But oh, this isn't the way, for the danger and the weakness of this method is its futility. Violence creates many more social problems than it solves. And I've said in so many instances that as a Negro in particular, and colored peoples all over the world struggle for freedom, if they succumb to the temptation of using violence in their struggle, Unborn generations will be the recipients of a long and desolate night of bitterness, and our chief legacy of the future will be an endless reign of meaningless chaos. Violence is not the way. He says another way is to acquiesce and to give in, to resign yourself to oppression. Some people do that. They discover the difficulties of the wilderness moving into the promised land, and they would rather go back to the despots of Egypt because it's difficult to get into the promised land. Isn't that a beautiful metaphor? I just love this. And so they resign themselves to the fate of oppression. They somehow acquiesce to this thing, but that isn't the way, because non cooperation with evil is as much a moral obligation as is cooperation with good. Wow. What non-cooperation with evil is as much a moral obligation as is cooperation with good. But there is another way, and that is to organize mass nonviolent resistance based upon the principle of love. It seems to me that this is the only way as our eyes look to the future. As we look across the years and across the generations, let us develop and move right here. We must discover the power of love, the redemptive power of love. And when we discover that, we will be able to make of this old world a new world. We will be able to make men better. Love is the only way, and Jesus discovered that. Not only did Jesus discover it, even his great military leaders discovered it. One day, as Napoleon came toward the end of his career and looked back across the years, the great Napoleon, that at a very early age had all but conquered the world, he was not stopped till he moved out of the battle of Leipzig and then to Waterloo. But that same Napoleon one day stood back and looked across the years and said, Alexander, Caesar, Charlemagne, and I have built great empires, but upon what did that depend? They depended upon force. But long ago, Jesus started an empire that depended on love, and even to this day, millions will die for him. So, to recap, Dr. King's influence on my spiritual journey has taken a 3-chunk kind of unfolding of my awareness. And the first was, as a minister to minister, the appreciation for his ability to describe love. And then the second chunk was my own grappling with the life that he lived and my perception of how it should have been done, and coming to peace over that, and then blooming a new part of myself. And then the third chunk of that is the realization that because he was committed to peace, living from peace, demonstrating from peace, and bringing forth love, that the demonstrations and the life and the culture that we're experiencing today at this very moment has been influenced by his work. And so that trajectory for me has been really quite incredibly profound. So a shout out to Dr. King. All right, let's go ahead and close our eyes and just breathe into this awareness that hate begets hate, and love is the only thing that can transform it. The only thing. And with your breath today, I invite you to actually imagine your breath going all the way down into your toes and then all the way back up to the top of your head, like you're breathing fresh air into your body temple. And what you and I know is all there is love, that hate is an illusion, it is a shadow, as Plato would say. So repeat after me as we breathe in and out through our body temples. All there is love. And again, all there is love. All there is love. All there is love. The I am in my body temple is love. The I am in my body temple is love. My body temple is a demonstration of love. My body temple is a demonstration of love. My body temple is a demonstration of love. The field in which my body lives is a field of love. The field in which my body lives is a field of love. The field in which my body lives is a field of love. All there is love. I am willing to be the place that love lives. I am willing to be the place that love lives. I am willing to be the place that love lives. Love oozes out of my cells. Love oozes out of my cells. Love oozes out of my cells. Love is the cells themselves. Love is the cells themselves. Love is the cells themselves. And now, instead of oming together, let's love together. Ready? Love. And again. Love. And again. Love. And as we chant love, allow yourself to feel it in the cells of your body. Allow yourself to experience the vibrational tone of that beautiful word. As again, we tone. Love. And I invite you to scan your body temple. Notice if there's anywhere that there's pain, stuck energy, a yearning for attention internally. Place your attention there. Sit with it. And if there isn't anything, then place your attention upon the field that surrounds your body and just be present. Scan your body. If there's any part of your body that wants your attention, place it there. If not, place your attention in your field and just hang out there. Let's give ourselves the energy of love. And I want to talk a minute about what love is not. Love is not mamby-pamby. Love is not a feeling only, an emotion. Love is not sentimental, although that might be a byproduct of it. But love is a fierce force for good. Love is the mama bear protecting its lioness. Did I say bear? A lion protecting its cub. Love is a standing up. Love is uncomfortable most of the time. Love stretches us. Love pulls us. Love grows us. Love heals us. Love is the strongest energy field on this planet. So let's go back to our body or the field around us. Let's place our attention where it is begging for attention. And a question to ask that part of your body is, how might I love you more? What do you need? And let's chant another love. 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 And let's do 3 more with space in between before closing. Love. And I want to remind us that when Jesus says to love your enemies, the enemies exist in our mind. And so we love them. We love them. We see their wholeness. We love them. That doesn't mean we have lunch with them. That doesn't mean we have them over for dinner. It means that in our mind, the enemy status is erased. In our mind, love exists. Love. Again, love is not mamby-pamby. Love is taking a stand for right action. Love is taking a stand for wholeness. Love is taking a stand in compassion. Love. Hmm. So I invite you to feel that energy field around you. Feel the vibration within you. And in this moment, I want to remind you, as I remind myself, just how powerful we are. Just think the most powerful thing in this world is love, and it lives within us. You and I are powerhouses. We are powerhouses. We can access an energy that transforms, that uplifts, that empowers. I want to remind each one of us that we are more than the conditions in which we dwell at this moment. Whatever our condition is, we are more than that. If we feel like there's not a lot of money in our bank accounts, we are more than that. We are more than that. We are the powerhouses of love. If we are experiencing any kind of health challenge, we are more than that. We are the place in which the challenge exists and is waking us up to more of ourself. You and I are powerhouses of love. If you and I are experiencing fear around anything, we are more than that. We are more than that. It passes through us. We are a powerhouse. I am a powerhouse. You are a powerhouse of the strongest energy that exists on the planet, that is not feeble, that is not contained, that is not limited, but that is a force field. And it's called love. What if you and I dare to touch that place within us that is that powerhouse of love? What if we choose to live from it? What if we forgive and open more doors? What if we take full and complete responsibility for our lives because we are engined by that love? You and I chose to be born at a time like this in history that we may have learned from Dr. King how to coalesce love, how to corral it, how to experience it, how to feel it, how to deliver it. And so as we go forth this week, may we go forth aware that the strongest energy of the universe lives within you and lives within me, and that the key to accessing it is awareness. Awareness plus intent. And so I give thanks that each one of us showed up tonight in order to remember who we are. I give thanks that each one of us showed up in order to remember who we are. I give thanks for this love that is eternal, that is everlasting, that is abundant, that is without end. And I give thanks that it is housed in every living thing on this planet, including and especially us. And so I bless the world outside of ourselves by looking at it through the eyes of love. And I bless my internal world by doing the same. I give thanks for all of the good, all of the glory, all of the love, and all of the well being that is mine this day. And I bless Spokane. I bless the state of Washington. I bless the United States of America. And to bless means to confer prosperity or well being upon. So I confer prosperity and well being upon the United States of America and upon Canada and upon all the countries in the world and upon the cosmos and the galaxies and everything in physical form. I am grateful that you and I have this power of blessing. And so, for all of this good and all of this glory, and for our innate powers, I do give thanks. And together, let's say, and so it is. Amen. Thank you so much. I love, love, love Tuesday nights and love being with you. Please, if you're enjoying this, subscribe, send a link to your friends, and have a blessed, lovely week. I'll see you next Tuesday.